Is, oops, let me stop this. Today is the 1st of May, 2018. We're at the New York State Military Museum. My name is Wayne Clarke. Sir, for the record, would you please state your full name and date and place of birth, please?
Francis Scott, Lajeunesse, Brunswick, New York.
And when were you born?
I was born in 1934, July 14th, 1934.
Now, did you attend school there?
Yes.
And did you graduate from high school?
I went through high school and I graduated from 3 colleges.
And where did you go to college?
I went to college at the Hudson Valley Community College, Siena College, and Union University in Schenectady. And
did you go to college after you left the service or prior?
This was after I left the service.
All right. And when did you enter the service?
I entered the service in 1951. Is that correct? Yeah.
And you went into the Navy.
I went in the Navy.
And why did you pick the Navy? Or let me ask you this, were you drafted or did you enlist?
There was 2 things. I was in the United States Naval Reserve in Troy, Surface Organization 399, and the notice came up for me to report for the draft, and so I asked for activation. I was in the Naval Reserve in Troy, and I asked for activation, and my orders came through, and around the same time I got a notice to report to Albany for induction for a physical, and I took the physical, and I was gone to Bainbridge, Maryland, and they had sent a couple of notices to the house to my mother, but she threw them out because I was in the service. And the 2 MPs came to the house and asked where I was, and she told them I was in the service, and so they said okay, and they left. And I didn't hear no more from them. I went to Bainbridge, Maryland to serve.
Now you went to basic training there?
Yes.
What was basic training like?
Basic training was marching and just some of the ordinary things in life that you would be expected of it. And it was all the people coming up from Florida and the southern states. They were all catching cold and going to the hospital because they weren't used to the weather. And the weather in Maryland was not very nice at that time of the year. I think it was in May or April, might have been March.
When you started to serve? It was the 18th of February, 53.
February, was it? Okay, and it was bitter cold there.
Now, were there any other people there that you knew from your unit or from your hometown?
No.
Okay. And how long did that basic training last?
I think it was 2 months.
2 months. After your basic training, did you go on to an advanced school?
From the basic training, they sent me to Newport, Rhode Island. And I went to Newport, and I stayed there for the 2 years that I was in the service. I had after I had basic training, I was part of the ship's company for the base to take care of the base itself. That was my job. I was a fireman, and it's considered the engineering department. So they put me in there on different things, and they also came to me and said, you've been selected for special duty. You are going to be notified when there's any visitors on the base, and you are to report to the Naval War College with full uniform.
Mhm.
So I did get that a few times.
Now, why do you think they picked you?
I don't know.
You must have had something on the ball.
Well, I found out later that the neighbor a couple of blocks away, his brother was an admiral in the Navy.
Oh,
So I surmise that's what happened.
uh-huh. Okay. And what was life like there, your daily routine? Did you work days or nights?
Days,
Days?
yeah.
Mhm.
And then they came to me and they said, you're going to be considered the admiral's side boy. You will report when we notify you to the Naval War College and dress blues. And we have somebody coming aboard.
Ah.
You're part of the welcoming committee.
Hmm.
So that was it. And I served for 2 years there. And of course, whenever I got liberty, I lived in Troy, so I would get out on the road, hitchhike, and I'd be in Troy. And I'd spend the weekend at home and hitchhike back at night, on Sunday night, Sunday afternoon. I think I knew every crack in the road on Route 20.
As a serviceman, did you have any problem getting a ride? Obviously, you were probably
No.
in uniform.
Only one time, the state police picked me up in Massachusetts, and they said, "You're in a bad part of town, and we don't want you here. We're going to take you over to a better part of town where you'll catch a ride."
Oh,
And that was all. It was
Nice.
fine.
uh-huh.
One time I got picked up by a tractor trailer driver, and he said to me, "Don't fall asleep." He said, "I need you to keep me awake." So that was
Nice.
the 2 times, and a couple of times. Once I was on the base, and the master at arms said, "We're pulling the Liberty cards because there's going to be a storm." So they said, "Before we pull the Liberty cards, here's your card. We know you go home quite often and take the road." So I went home.
Mm-hmm.
And on the way back, I said, "Oh, geez, I don't know. Well, how am I going to get a ride? It's going to be stormy." So I went down to Albany, because we lived in Troy.
Mm-hmm.
I went down to Albany to the bus depot, and the guys were in there, and they said, "Hey, we're going to across the bay from Newport. They have a naval air station."
Mm-hmm.
And so they took me to there, and they said, there was what they call a crash boat, would go across the bay so many times a day to Newport Naval Station to deliver people there. And they said, "We haven't been, it's been canceled because of the storm, but we're going to run this morning." And so I was standing there behind the guy when he was talking to them, and
Yep.
I jumped on the back of the boat, and we got out in the middle, and I had dress blues on, and I was soaked right up to my knees because the water was coming over the tops of the
Oh,
boat.
boy.
And I got back to Newport, and I was about a couple hours late. And I said to the master at arms, I said, "I'm sorry, I'm late." He said, "You're not late, I mustered you in." And I'd never done anything against him, but I don't know that I ever done anything for him, but he was just that kind of a guy.
Yep.
He said, "I know you go home on a regular basis," and he said,
Nice.
"There you are."
Now, what kind of quarters did you have there?
It was regular quarters. It was a barracks full of guys,
Uh-huh.
double-decker beds in there.
Okay.
We had probably about 40 in the barracks.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you have to pull like fire guard in the barracks?
Guard
at all?
duty, yes.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And did they have the old coal furnaces in them?
Pardon me?
Did they have the coal furnaces in the barracks? Or like a potbelly stove or something?
No, we had a furnace, and it was, like automatic, so
Mm-hmm.
it kind of maintained itself. It was,
Okay.
I guess it was oil.
I know some of the older bases had the old coal-fired furnaces.
No, we were outdated.
Now, how was the food?
The food wasn't bad. It was by that time, our food on Sunday, they had all you can eat. You could go through the line twice.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to get people to stay, to
Yeah.
ship over. And these are my 5 brothers
Okay, can you hold that up in front of you? All right,
and my
let me,
mother and father
see if I
with us.
see if I can zoom in on them. Do you want to name them for us? Starting
Well,
with. Okay.
This was my oldest brother, Gene,
Okay.
and then my mom and dad, and my brother Bill, and my brother Paul,
Yeah.
myself, my brother Gerard, and my brother George.
Now, are any of them still living?
The only one still living is George, the youngest.
Oh, okay.
Him and I are the 2.
Okay, and you want to hold that up? Zoom in on it here. Okay. Now, was that taken after basic training or during basic training?
It was after basic training.
Okay, you can set that down. All right. Any interesting incidents or anything, or any visits from celebrities or?
Well, one time they had an inspection of the barracks, and the captain came, and he stopped. He seen me there, and he said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "You have an engineering rank." I was a fireman.
Uh-huh.
And I told him, I said, I tried to get aboard ship, but I said I didn't make out with it. So I said, I'm here. And he said, oh, I can get you aboard ship. He said, right, we got a cruise going around the world. He said, we'll get with you and talk to you about it. And I said, I can't. I said, I'm on my way out. I said, I only got like 3 weeks left in here. And he said, oh, you can't interest you? I said, no. I said, I'm getting married as soon as I get out.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I'm not interested in staying. So that was it. And the funny part of it was, hitchhiking back and forth home, I was outside my house, and 2 girls in the car stopped and picked me up. One of them was my future wife.
Oh. Did you know her at that point or no?
No, they took me to Pittsfield
Uh-huh.
from Troy, let me out, and we started dating.
And the rest
That
is
was that.
history.
But I found out the neighbor across the block, the next block over, he was the admiral's brother. So I don't know if that was a connection or not.
Uh-huh.
But he somehow afterward he told me that his brother was an admiral in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
It was, well, the 2 years, like I said, I made many trip home.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'd be out there at night hoping I got a ride on Route 20.
Mm-hmm.
I knew almost every crack in the road on Route 20.
Now, when were you discharged?
I was
17th
discharged
of February in 1955.
17th of
Okay.
February 50.
Now, did you make, excuse me, did you make use of the GI Bill at all?
I started on the GI Bill, and the guys at work complained. They said, "Oh, you're getting special privilege. You're getting put on a night shift so you can go during the day." So I lost out on the GI Bill because I dropped it, and I paid my own way
Mm-hmm.
through college, through all the colleges.
Wow.
And the last college I was in, the company I was working for, Ford Motor Company, they said, "We'll pay your way here."
Mm-hmm.
They said, "You're serious about it." I originally, before I went to service, I was working for General Electric in Schenectady, and they said, you will get credit for the time you're in there, and we'll give you a job when you come back. Well, when I come back, they gave me a job, but the job didn't last. It was about 6 months I was laid off again.
Oh,
I went to the unemployment office in Troy, and they said, "We got a job for you with Ford Motor Company," which was in Green Island.
mm-hmm.
So I went over to Ford Motor Company, and they said, "You can go to work today." I said, "No, I don't. I have work clothes on me." They said, "We'll get you a pair of coveralls." So I went to work for Ford, and I never lost a day.
Wow.
I was even employed at times when they were out on strike, because the job I had required somebody there, and they kept me there.
And how long did you work for them?
36 years I worked for Ford Motor Company.
And when did you retire?
I retired
1993.
93.
Okay. And let's see.
While he was at Ford is when he was attending school
Uh-huh.
with 5 children at home.
5 children. Wow.
Yeah, I worked at Ford, and I attended college.
And you went to Siena?
I went to Hudson Valley,
Okay.
Siena, and Union,
Oh, okay. And what did you get your degree in?
at business.
Okay.
I got 1 degree in business and 1 in engineering,
Nice.
and I maintained myself on the president's list all through college.
Mm-hmm.
All through the 3 colleges. It wasn't easy
Hmm.
because I was working full time,
Sure.
and we had 5 children.
How many grandchildren?
Oh, we didn't have any grandchildren at that time.
Uh-huh.
No.
But now?
Down here, 7.
7. Okay. Did you join the American Legion at all?
Yeah, I've been in the American Legion 45 years.
Oh, nice.
I just got a plaque for that the other day.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, just brought a plaque home for
Okay.
45 years.
And he was a commander, past county commander, correct?
Yeah, I've been county commander, a district commander, and,
Mm-hmm.
Sergeant Walter Adams in Newport Park.
Now, how do you think your time in the service changed or affected your life? Obviously, it has.
well, it made me realize that I needed more education
Mm-hmm.
to get a better job, and so I took advantage of it. And like I say, I paid for all my college out of my pocket while I was working full time. I worked full time, went to college. I took 18 credit hours in college.
Must have been pretty difficult to study with 5 kids running around too.
All girls.
Ah.
Yeah, I had 1 room in the house. I went in there and
Uh-huh.
buried myself in the books.
Okay. All right. Before we close, is there anything else you'd like to add? Or can you think of anything you'd like to ask him? Well, let me just ask you this. Did you stay in touch with any of the people you were in the service with?
No.
No. And did you go to any reunions or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
What about
No.
your brothers on the monument in Pittston?
Huh?
Your brothers on the monument in Pittston?
Oh, yeah. Well, I made sure that I got all my brothers' names on the honor roll.
Mm-hmm.
And every year, I put a wreath on the honor roll in Rammertown.
Oh, all right.
I made sure there's a wreath there.
That's where you grew up on a farm.
Right.
Okay.
We lived in Pittstown when I was a young boy,
Mm-hmm.
and we had 375-acre farm.
That's a pretty good sized farm.
We farmed it with horses, and when we moved to Knox, New York. And when we got there, by then my brothers were all in the service, and I was the oldest one under them. And the job fell to me when my father was working, because he worked full time.
Mm-hmm.
We had, by then we got a tractor, and my job was to go out and plow the fields,
Mm-hmm.
plant them, and take care of the animals while my father was working.
Now, was your father a veteran?
My father wasn't a veteran.
No. Okay.
No, he died when he was 50 years old.
My mom was a school teacher.
My mom was a school teacher. She was long before her and my father got married, and at the school that we were going to, there was a one-room school
Mm-hmm.
that had about 14 kids in it, and the teacher just walked out before Christmas, and she didn't come back. So they were at a loss of what to do. So they came to my mother and they said, if we get your license back for you, will you teach? So my mother said, okay. So they got my mother her license reinstated, and she
Mhm.
taught school for a year. And when we had that farm, we
Mhm.
had no electricity, no telephone. No, we had the bare essentials.
Wow.
After you retired from Ford, you stayed on as a consultant, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, when I retired from Ford, I stayed on as a consultant. And one time, the engineering groups from different areas had a meeting in Detroit, and I got a call. They said, we're from Korea, and we had a meeting in Detroit, and we told them we need help, and they said, your name came up as one of the most likely, and so we'd like to know if you'd go to Korea for us. So I went to Korea for them for a while. I got them out of trouble, and came back home, and that was it.
Well, sounds like you had a very
Mm.
diverse and interesting life.
Yeah. When the plant closed in Green Island, you went to Mexico for 6
Yeah,
years.
when the plant closed in Green Island, they asked me if I wanted to retire, and I said, no, I don't want to retire yet, I'm too young. And I said, I'll have to look for a job. So they said, we got a job for you. They sent me to Detroit and then down to Juarez, Mexico, and I spent
6 years down there.
16 years down there. I got the plant together and got it running for them. They wanted me to stay on, and at 55, I said, no, that's it, I'm
Mhm.
done. Oh, I retired at 55 and left.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your interview.
Mm-hmm.